Good evening, it's Monday the 3rd of March and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Aid standoff. Israel blocks Gaza aid trucks as truce tensions escalate. Hamas calls for mediation. Emergency landing. FedEx cargo plane lands safely at Newark after bird strike causes engine fire. Lunar future. Private sector lunar landers launch, paving the way for NASA's astronaut return to the moon.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Mehin De Silva.
Good evening once again. Israel has blocked the entry of aid trucks into Gaza as tensions over the 6-week truce escalate, with Hamas calling on Egyptian and Qatari mediators to intervene.
Aid trucks were stuck in a long line at Egypt's Rafah border crossing on Sunday after Israel blocked them from going into Gaza as a standoff over a truce with Hamas escalated. The first phase of the previously agreed ceasefire expired on Saturday, and talks for a second phase have yet to begin. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told a cabinet meeting on Sunday the country has agreed to a US proposal for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. The truce proposes to halt fighting until after the Muslim Ramadan holy month and the Jewish Passover holiday ending around April 20th. Ramadan began on Saturday with thousands of Palestinians seen sitting together between piles of rubble in Gaza for the first break of their daily fast in the evening. The proposed truce requires Hamas to release half of the living and dead hostages on the first day. The remainder are to be released at the end if a deal is reached on a permanent ceasefire. But Hamas has rejected the idea of a temporary extension and called on mediators Egypt and Qatar to intervene. It said it was committed to the originally agreed ceasefire, with second phase talks aimed at a permanent end to the war. On Sunday, Netanyahu demanded Hamas release the hostages, threatening what he said were additional consequences without giving further details. In response to the rising tensions, Egypt's foreign minister called the use of aid as a weapon of collective punishment a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law. Badr Abdeletti also said the country was continuing intensive efforts to start the second phase talks. At a press briefing, Abdeletti said Egypt has a Gaza reconstruction plan ready to be presented at an emergency Arab summit in Cairo on Tuesday. It comes after Arab states firmly rejected President Donald Trump's plan for the US to take control of Gaza and resettle Palestinians. Abdeletti said he could not give details yet, but that the Egyptian plan will ensure Palestinians remain in their land.
At least 4 people have died and several others are missing after an avalanche swept away road construction workers in Uttarakhand's Mana village near the Tibet border, prompting an urgent rescue mission.
A devastating avalanche swept through a highway construction site near Mana Pass in Uttarakhand, burying more than 50 workers under heavy snow. Rescue teams managed to pull most of them out, but 4 succumbed to their injuries and 5 remain missing. Sniffer dogs and military helicopters have been deployed to aid in the search, but ongoing snowstorms and freezing temperatures have made rescue operations increasingly difficult. The Indo-Tibetan Border Police cited extreme weather conditions as a major hurdle in reaching the affected area. The Indian Army has been evacuating the wounded, while Uttarakhand Chief Minister assured full government support for those impacted.
Now to news coming from Europe. European leaders, including those from Germany, France, Spain, Poland and the Netherlands, rallied behind Volodymyr Zelensky following his heated exchange with Donald Trump at the White House, with Zelensky personally thanking all of them for their support.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer did not mince words on Sunday about the stakes facing Ukraine and Europe at a summit of world leaders in London.
It's time to act, time to step up and lead.
The summit drew world leaders to support Ukraine and its president, Volodymyr Zelensky, in the 4th year since Russian forces invaded the neighboring country. Leaders hoped to work toward a peace plan that would end the fighting and guarantee future Ukrainian independence.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
Not
cards.
playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
But overhanging Sunday's summit was Friday's fiery Oval Office face-off that appeared to shred relations between Washington and Kiev.
You're gambling with World War III.
Years of staunch American support for Ukraine and its fight against a Russian invasion appeared to evaporate when U.S. President Donald Trump, who returned to the White House deeply critical of Washington's support for Kiev, erupted in anger at Zelensky.
If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
Rather than offering support for an American ally valiantly resisting an unprovoked attack by its larger neighbor, Trump instead castigated the visiting leader, admonishing him to accept the difficult position his country was in. It ended with the visit cut short, and Trump posting on social media that Ukraine was not ready to make peace. The affair sent shockwaves through American allies and prompted pleased responses from American rivals. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov praised Trump's, quote, common-sense approach. The president of Finland said the only winner in the dispute was Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Trying to revive hope for peace in Ukraine, Starmer on Sunday unveiled what he called a coalition of the willing, a group of nations willing to put personnel on the line to defend a peace deal if reached. And he announced a $2 billion deal to supply British-made air defense missiles to Ukraine.
I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States.
Trump has upended U.S. policy in the 3-year-old war since he returned to the White House in January, casting doubt on its military and political support for Ukraine and Europe, and ending the isolation of Moscow.
More news on Zelensky. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reaffirmed his unwavering support for Volodymyr Zelensky, stating that Vladimir Putin cannot be trusted to honor any agreement on Ukraine.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reaffirmed his unwavering support for Ukraine following President Volodymyr Zelensky's tense meeting with Donald Trump in Washington. Speaking in London after a summit with European leaders, Trudeau warned that Russian President Vladimir Putin cannot be trusted and emphasized the need for long-term security guarantees to ensure long-lasting peace. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a new coalition of the willing to uphold security in Ukraine, with potential military commitments from the UK and its allies. As tensions rise over the future of Western support, Trudeau suggested that Canada might be able to contribute militarily, but left the final decision to future leadership. With European nations calling for increased defense spending and a strong security framework, the push for a concrete plan to counter Russia's aggressions gained momentum.
The United States President Donald Trump has announced that the 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada will take effect tomorrow, alongside an additional 10% tariff on China, following a one-month pause that had created uncertainty.
Donald Trump returned to the White House on Sunday night as speculation swirled over exactly what he has planned on tariffs. The US president has said Canada and Mexico would face 25% levies over the alleged flow of fentanyl across their borders. However, speaking on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said that wasn't quite certain. Lutnick said that Canada and Mexico had done a reasonable job securing their borders, though he said fentanyl also continued to flow into the US. Last week, Trump had sowed confusion when he floated a possible April 2nd deadline in connection with the tariffs, only to later reaffirm Tuesday as decision day. He also said he would impose an extra 10% tariff on Chinese exports, on top of the 10% he had already set. Whatever happens now, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has vowed a stern response. Trudeau said the data showed that very little fentanyl had ever entered the US via Canada, with quantities now even further reduced. Meanwhile, Chinese state media reports say Beijing will target US farm goods when it sets out countermeasures to any new tariffs on its exports.
Now to a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back to World News Tonight. At least 4 people have been killed as Cyclone Garance struck La Réunion, making landfall in the north of the island east of Madagascar, blowing away roofs, cutting power and leaving many without access to drinking water.
These 2 cars, parked outside an apartment block in La Réunion, ended up here, pushed by currents of rushing water from Cyclone Garance. Dozens of vehicles floated in the streets, carried away by torrential rains. Some cars are buried in mud. The water also flooded houses. This resident was surprised by the cyclone's force. This man has lost almost everything.
This is the water level. See the little mark there? The water came up to this level.
Here, the water burst upwards and raging waves caused this bridge to collapse. Several roads are damaged. Around 120,000 homes are still without electricity, and more than 300,000 people still have no access to drinking water. The fire brigade distributed almost 2,000 tarpaulin covers in the most affected towns to shelter people. New reinforcements arrived on the scene, and France's army has been clearing and securing certain areas.
Now to an update on the extreme weather of China. Eastern China experienced extreme weather over the weekend, with Shandong battered by severe snowstorms, while Shanghai recorded its hottest early March in over 150 years. Blizzards swept across 10 cities in Shandong, with Jinan recording the highest snowfall and issuing rare red alerts for road icing and blizzards. The heavy snow disrupted daily life, prompting school closures, travel delays, and the shutdown of major scenic spots like Mount Tai. Meanwhile, Shanghai saw summer-like temperatures reaching 28.5 degrees of Celsius, with some suburbs exceeding 29 degrees of Celsius. Residents were stunned by the sudden heat, describing it as an instant shift to summer. Meteorologists warned of an abrupt temperature drop of 15 degrees today, accompanied by rain and thunderstorms. The stark contrast in weather highlights the growing unpredictability of climate patterns in the region. A FedEx cargo plane made an emergency landing at Newark Liberty Airport after a bird strike caused an engine fire, briefly halting air traffic before operations resumed.
This was the terrifying sight in the sky over Newark, New Jersey this morning.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
A FedEx plane with its right engine on fire.
We're declaring emergency, returning to the airfield.
You can see the flames and smoke shooting out of the engine as the plane returned to Newark Liberty International Airport for an emergency landing. Drivers nearby shocked. The FAA says the plane, bound from New Jersey to Indianapolis, circled back to the airport after a bird strike.
Tower, FedEx 3609, yeah, we're the right engine shut down for possible bird strike.
No injuries were reported, and tonight, FedEx thanking its pilots, crew, and first responders. The most notable bird strike, the Miracle on the Hudson in 2009, when both engines were knocked down on a U.S. Airways flight. Everyone on board survived. Today's engine fire is just the latest in a string of frightening high-profile aviation incidents.
And now about the biggest night for the movies. The 2025 Oscars, hosted by Conan O'Brien, honored the best in cinema last night, with Anora winning 5 awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Sean Baker.
The 97th Academy Awards took place last night at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles, celebrating the finest achievements in cinema over the past year. Hosted by Conan O'Brien, the ceremony was filled with memorable moments. The film Anora emerged as the night's biggest winner, securing 5 Oscars, including Best Picture. Director Sean Baker made history by winning 4 awards in a single night: Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Editing, in addition to the Best Picture. In the acting categories, Mikey Madison received the Best Actress award for her role in Anora, while Adrian Brody was honored with the Best Actor for his performance in The Brutalist. Zoe Saldana won Best Supporting Actress for Emilia Perez, and Kieran Culkin took home the Best Supporting Actor for A Real Pain. A poignant moment during the event was Morgan Freeman's tribute to his late friend and fellow actor Gene Hackman, honoring his remarkable contribution to cinema. Despite technical difficulties with Hulu's streaming service, which caused interruptions for some viewers, the ceremony proceeded with memorable performances and heartfelt speeches.
And now to a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. You are back with World News tonight. A wave of lunar landers developed by private sector companies was launched this year as a part of NASA's push to prepare for astronauts' return to the moon's surface later this decade.
These lunar views were captured by Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost spacecraft. Set to touch down on Sunday, it's one of 2 landers currently in transit to the moon's surface. Their goal is to deliver science and technology from NASA as part of the space agency's $2.6 billion Commercial Lunar Payload Services initiative. On Wednesday, Intuitive Machines launched its six-legged moonlander Athena atop a SpaceX rocket. It's set to land around March 6th near the moon's south pole, where it will be drilling down and measuring the amount of water present.
The world's biggest party is underway as Rio de Janeiro's mayor handed the city's key to Carnival monarch King Momo, marking the start of 5 days of festivities where performers and revelers brave their summer heat to celebrate.
The biggest party on the planet is officially underway, and this year Carnival is expected to be hotter than ever. I'm not talking about the costumes that will be parading down the Sambadrome here in Rio. I'm talking about the temperatures. That's because Brazil has already undergone 5 intense heat waves this year, and temperatures in much of the country are between 3 and 7 degrees higher than average. It means that revelers are being warned to take extra care in the summer sun. One novelty this year is that there are going to be 5 nights of parades instead of 4. The extra night is to give the samba schools more time to show off their magic. It also means more tickets sold and more revenue for the city, which expects to generate around €1 billion for the economy over Carnival, as 8 million people are expected to join the party.
And finally tonight, for a news that's been a long time coming. Aeronautics has successfully conducted a groundbreaking test in an urban environment where a fully electric vehicle took off vertically after driving on the road, successfully landing after its flight.
The futuristic silhouette, the ability to fly and jump over other parked cars, this flying car prototype has just completed its first full-scale tests in California. Entirely electric, it has 8 small motors and sounds just like a drone. The car fits 2 people in the cockpit, although it doesn't have a boot, used instead to hold the batteries. In order to avoid bumpy rides and rocky landings, the vehicle is extremely light, weighing less than 400 kilos. Not to worry though, the car has an emergency system in case of glitches. The manufacturer promises a range of 300 kilometers. They say over 3,000 customers have already placed orders, despite the cars being around $300,000 each. So could we imagine our cities fluttering with low-flying vehicles? Some projects seem to already be well advanced, such as this Slovak model, agile in the air and able to blend into traffic thanks to its retractable wings. Or this Chinese sports car, presented in Las Vegas, which has also completed successful test flights. For specialists though, cities swarming with flying cars remains a thing of science fiction. While taxi drones with very precise air corridors and itineraries might be developed in some cities, flying cars are most likely to remain an expensive hobby, a far cry from the dreamy, futuristic videos proposed by many developers.
Well, that's a wrap from all of us at World News Tonight. Up next, Sanuvi Mudanayaka is standing by for the nightly business report. I am Mihin De Silva and we leave you with vibrant visuals of floats and feathered dances coming from none other than Rio de Janeiro's Carnival. Thank you for watching us. Have a good night.